Go back and watch that full video to see the full question. But essentially, could someone like an impartial journalist who is studying radicalized groups and extremist groups become radicalized themselves? And the answer is simply, absolutely. Without proper care before exposure and after exposure, repeated exposures of these radical ideas and extremist ideologies could radicalize pretty much anyone. And we see this demonstrated in the YouTube alt-right pipeline. And that's a phenomenon in which the YouTube algorithm actually works towards helping radicalization and adopting of extremist ideas. Once you watch a video on YouTube of extremist ideology, either trying to understand how extremist thinks or just happen to click the video, YouTube then begins to show you recommendations for more extremist ideology, repeatedly exposing the subject to this extremist viewpoint. And without proper care, they may begin to adopt those views. In the way that these groups present their ideas, the change that happens with someone who's exposed to them is so small you don't even notice it at first. Extremists are smart enough to know that on your first visit with them or your first time watching their material, if they start spouting off genocide, you're probably going to back away. But if they start you off with something different, for example, anti-Semitic dog whistles, something where you don't truly know what it means, they may be able to keep your attention long enough. And from there, they just slowly keep adding into it. Because for the extremist, they have all the time in the world. Because if the end goal doesn't happen in their lifetime, so what? They still worked towards their cause. This creates an issue for people like me who work to combat extremist ideology. When people like me make content, we have to be very careful because we're exposing you to extremist ideology. So we have to make sure that we have that follow-up, where we explain what's wrong with this ideology, why this ideology is flawed, the counterpoints. Because if we don't, all we're doing is boosting the amount of view their hateful rhetoric gets. This is why I don't like the political sphere on Twitch. The debate bros, as some people call them, where they will literally bring an anti-Semite, a neo-Nazi, or other form of extremist onto their platform to engage in debate. At that point, all you're doing is handing over your platform to that extremist and giving them your audience. Plus giving them material to chop up into sound bites to further embolden their own audience. Because in a public debate, they're not going to admit defeat. So if you want to fight back against extremist rhetoric, there's a few things that you can do. 1, counter their points without giving them uncontrolled access to your audience. 2, mock them. Oh, I mean it. Just straight out mock their beliefs. Let your audience see how stupid their ideology is. And 3, censor them. Petition the platforms that they are on to remove them. That can either be contacting that account's legal team or reporting their platforms. But if you're going to start studying how extremists think, don't do it without a counterbalance. Someone who can keep you rational, or maybe even therapy.